We're talking about how to start an LLC in South Carolina, and what you can see behind me here is a document that we're going to be working through, and this is filled with checklists and resources that are going to make this as easy as possible for you. But the most important part of it, in my opinion, is this one right up the top here, which is how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. Now, the reason I call it that is people kind of rush and they get their LLC set up, but they're not aware of all the terms and things that are required to run that LLC and maintain it properly. So if you're not familiar with terms such as piercing the corporate veil, registered agents, commingling funds, or pass-through taxation, we're going to be covering that in this video. We're also going to be talking about how the LLC renewal process works, business licenses and permits, and other factors as well. But to better address these items, and this is going to be a video series, but to look at these through the right lens, what I want to do is zoom out a little bit and talk about what an LLC actually does for your business, because sometimes people aren't 100% clear on this, and I want to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting into. Now, the LLC does two main things. It offers limited liability protection, and it also offers pass-through taxation. So why don't we explain these both of these things through the example of owning a coffee shop without an LLC to start. Now, in this situation here, what we have is a business owner in the center, and they have their personal home, car, and bank account on the left side. But on the right side, they have their coffee shop. They have the point of sale, the bank account, business bank account, the cafe, the espresso machine, the lights. Everything is directly connected back to this business owner, which is no good when it comes to your potential liability. Now, you can go to looking at owning an LLC that owns the coffee shop. This looks very different. What we have now is that business owners on the left-hand side with their personal assets, and on the right-hand side, we're calling this Acme Coffee LLC. Not a great name, but we're going to talk about why that doesn't matter in a little bit. But what you can see is there's a red division in the middle. What that division is called is the corporate veil. And basically what it's doing is it's creating a division between your personal and business assets. Now, earlier we talked about this. We said piercing the corporate veil is a term you should be familiar with, along with commingling funds. We're going to explain both of those things right now using this visual. Let's say, unfortunately, in this hypothetical scenario, that you were to be sued. Well, what would happen is the attorney suing you is going to look for cracks in your LLC, things that you did or didn't do that they can claim that your LLC was not properly set up or maintained. Now, let's say that you never got a business bank account set up and you've been running the business through your personal bank account. This is something called commingling funds. And when this happens, if the attorney can present this evidence to the judge and the judge agrees with them, they're going to allow them to pierce the corporate veil. Basically, what that does is it gets rid of this red division in the middle of the graphic here. And when that happens, they can not only come after your business assets, but your personal assets as well. So it's really important that you understand all of these terms and how they apply to your LLC. Now, next I want to talk about an explanation of pass-through taxation. This doesn't apply so much for getting your LLC set up, but I just want you to have the understanding of how you are going to be taxed when it comes to your taxes. Now, you can see we have Acme Coffee LLC on the left-hand side, and they grossed $140,000 of revenue. They had $90,000 of expenses, which resulted in $50,000 of net income. The IRS is not taxing Acme Coffee LLC. Why it's called the pass-through taxation is this $50,000 is passing through to the business owner. It's sometimes referred to as flow-through taxation as another word or phrase that they use for it. So just know that you're going to be taxed, not the LLC. Now, down here, there's a small mention here of applying an S-Corp designation to reduce your tax burden in the future. What we're going to do in video 3 of this series, we're going to talk more about that and how you can actually save on taxes once you start earning around $40,000 to $50,000 of net income. And that's why I really want you to watch this entire series, because it's not just about getting your LLC set up, but I want you to start thinking about what you're going to do 2-3 years out as your business starts growing. Now, what I want to look at is checklists to start your LLC. Really quickly, I want to say, get this checklist for yourself. There's a QR code on the screen. There's a link in the description. I'm making it easy for you. But the reason you'd want to get this checklist is, yes, it's going to help right here. But then if you scroll down a little bit, there's bonuses down here. There's future tax savings. There's free CPA advice. This yearly accounting calendar, super helpful. This is for 2024 and will be updated in future years as well. A free charitable opportunity to make a $20 donation to charity when you get your LLC set up. But this one's really cool. This is an AI chatbot here. So if I say how to start an LLC in South Carolina. What this chatbot will do is it starts to create a detailed list of the steps that you need to take within your state. And if you have other questions, you can say, how do I register an EIN? Now, you may not be familiar with an EIN right now. We're going to cover that in a few minutes in this video, but I just wanted to make you aware of this helpful chatbot. And also, we have this glossary of terms, which is helpful. And we're going to be talking about fictitious name in a moment in this video as well. So just a lot of helpful resources for you on this checklist. Now, what you need to do is you need to decide at some point, are you going to go with the state website to get set up? Are you going to go through an online legal tool, these LLC services, or are you going to go through a business attorney? The next video in this series, we're going to deep dive on this topic. So what we're going to do in this video is we're just going to focus on going through the state website and showing you how that works. Your first step is you need to decide on a name for your LLC, and then you need to search if the name is available. Now, there's a state directory list here, but what I will say is if you're looking in South Carolina for a business here, the LLC name is not as important as you think. A lot of times people put a lot of pressure on themselves for that. Now, going back to the Acme Coffee LLC, terrible name for an LLC. But you can have a fictitious name, as I mentioned before, or sometimes referred to as a DBA, doing business as, and that name is your brand name that exists within the LLC. So you could have Acme Coffee LLC, but then you could have Espresso Yourself Cafe as the fictitious business name. Now you can see why it's not quite as important to have the perfect LLC name, but what you do want to do is you want to go to this business name search, and you can have it begins with, contains, and now let's say I do Gamecocks, right? Of course, this is going to have businesses attached to that name within South Carolina. And as this database goes through things, these are all the uses of that name. Now, what you want to see is, let's say we just kind of jam out on the keyboard like this and do a search here. We're going to see a notice pop up that's going to say no available. What we see here is this name is available in this green box. That's what you want to see for your LLC name within the database. Now what you do once you have that name, you're ready to form your LLC. What we're going to do is we're going to look at these first three steps right here: registering your LLC name, writing your articles of organization, and then also assigning a registered agent. You may be wondering, like, what's the difference between registering an LLC name and filing the articles of organization? Well, the articles of organization is the actual document that you fill out that forms your LLC when you submit it to the state along with your filing fee. The registering of your LLC name is just securing that LLC name so that later you can file your articles of organization. It's kind of like if you're getting a website set up and you don't have the time or resources to actually build the website today, but you go and get the domain name. That's what registering your LLC name is like. But what we're going to do here is skip ahead to the writing of your articles of organization. There's another state directory list here, and we're going to go down to South Carolina. And we have this example here on the left-hand side. So you can see the document here, and what you can see here is there's a filing fee of $110. You are not getting around that filing fee. You are paying the Secretary of State, whether you go directly through the state website, if you go through an online legal tool or an attorney. But then you can see it says the name of the limited liability company that we have set up, the address of the initial designated office of the limited liability company. So where is the office located? The initial agent for service of process is. Now, South Carolina uses a little bit different wording here, agent for service of process. Most states call this a registered agent. Some call it a resident agent. And I believe some call it a statutory of process. So it has a different name, but basically what that service of process agent is doing is they are a third party that handles important information and documentation for your business. Now, let's go back to the example of you being sued. There's going to be a service of process notice. Your agent for service of process, which is a terrible name, I prefer registered agent, they're going to make sure that you're doing everything correctly when it comes to the documents and making sure that you're prepared for this case as you go to court. So that agent is very important in this situation. Now, what they kind of blaze past here is there's a few rules for it. You have to have this agent. They need a physical mailing address within the state of South Carolina, and it cannot be a P.O. box. Now, there are services out there and all those online legal tools, they will provide a agent for you, but it is an additional fee. But one in particular actually provides it for free for the entire first year as well. But when you're looking into those, the fees can stack up. So that's why we're going to deep dive on that in the next video, looking at all those little fees and seeing what the cost of ownership is for your LLC, not today, but also 5 years down the road. Now, looking down this further, list the names of each organizer, the people involved. A little bit further, check this box that the company is a term company. So then at the end here, you're going to sign and date, and then you just have your filing checklist that they provide. And again, most of that involved with paying that filing fee and submitting this to the state. Now, they have the address here if you're going to mail it in. You can do this online as well. Just know that there's usually a delay in this process. It can be anywhere from a few days to several weeks, depending on the current demand and how long the queue is for getting an LLC registered with the state. Now, once you get that set up and you file your articles of organization, you can decide to create and sign an LLC operating agreement. We talked about this earlier. This is not an actual requirement for getting an LLC set up in South Carolina, but it's a good idea. The phrase, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, comes to mind here. Now, let's say that you had a business partner and you guys have 16 different coffee shops that you've built up, but your business partner decides one day that they want to exit the business. What do you pay them when they exit the business? Well, if that hasn't been decided already on an operating agreement, you're going to be looking at a lot of time and money being spent with attorneys to get that figured out. What an operating agreement does is it lays out who the members of the LLC are, what are their roles and responsibilities, but it also covers things such as what happens if somebody needs to exit the LLC. So it's a really good idea to get that set up as soon as possible. The state website isn't going to help you with that. Online legal tools, they will typically have like a boilerplate template you can use. And if you have a more complex situation, you can go through a business attorney and really dial it in. But again, your price is going to go up substantially when you go that route as well. But it's always a good idea to get that set up as early as possible. After LLC formation, why don't we talk about setting up an EIN? There's an IRS link here that we're going to check out that explains this well. An EIN is an employment identification number. It's basically like a social security number, but for your business, so the IRS can identify it. Now, you don't need this right away necessarily, but if you're going to do things like run payroll with staff, you need an EIN number. But it's also nice because if you're applying for a bank account, a business loan, an office lease, business insurance, being able to put your EIN on there looks a lot more professional than a social security number. So I'd highly suggest just getting this set up day one and having that done with. You can do this for free on the IRS site right here, or those online legal tools will help handle that for you as well. When you go through the state website, they're not going to help you out with things on the federal level, which we can look at right now in this next question, actually. Here we're talking about obtaining business licenses and permits for your LLC. There's an SBA resource on here that's helpful, and you can scroll down and put in South Carolina, and it's going to have some good information. But basically, the way you can think about this is like, let's say you were starting a brewery. Well, that brewery is going to brew alcohol, they're going to distribute it, and they're going to serve it potentially on premise. Those three things each may require a different license and permit. Now, those things can be required on the federal, state, and local level. Local level could be your own town or city. So you can call the town clerk and just say, hey, I'm thinking about starting this type of business. What licenses and permits do I need? But the mistake a lot of business owners make is they think that because they have an LLC, that they're free and clear and legal to operate their business. And that is not the case always. If you're a chiropractor or a dentist, you may have certain things that you need versus a construction company. Now, not every business needs a license and permit, but I just want you to be aware of this. And also, most of the online legal tools, they'll have actual like research teams that can do this for you to make sure you're getting the proper permits and licenses for your business. But it usually is an additional fee. But if it's something you're worried about, they can help you work through that. Now, next, what we're going to talk about in video 2 of this series is we're going to talk about the fees associated with setting up your LLC. We already teased this earlier, but there is a cost calculator embedded into this document that shows you down to the dollar what your LLC is going to cost after 5 years. We're going to get into the star ratings, comparing online tools versus the state website versus business attorneys. We're going to get into something called domestic versus foreign LLCs and why that's an important thing to understand. And then we're also going to deep dive on different questions worth asking on if you should hire a business attorney for your situation. But I would say that even these questions, if they don't apply to you today, they may in the future, because we're going to talk about things such as like an LLC for rental properties. Maybe your business eventually owns the property and has its own office space, things like that. Or if you start to earn $40,000 to $50,000 in net income, why that's an important question to understand. Again, not just for today, but 2-3 years out. As your business is growing, you want to make sure that you're taking care of it the best as you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch you in that next video. And again, I highly suggest you get this free checklist for yourself. There'll be a link in the description for you, and we'll catch you in the next video.